Jayden Daniels in the starting offense had a statistically ugly day during the Burgundy and Gold scrimmage on Tuesday. But once we put the context on everything, I'm going to show you that it's not time to panic about your offense just yet. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I am David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9, here with you 5 days a week. And you can also find me writing about the Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com and follow me on X at DHarrison82. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view. And a special thank you goes out to all of the everydayers who come through for every episode. If you haven't already, anybody out there, please make sure you are subscribed for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's episode. If it's your first time coming through, welcome. Thanks for finding the show. Hopefully you like what you hear and you come back again real soon. Coming up on today's episode, Linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr. stopped by to talk about the Burgundy and Gold game, Frankie Luvu and Kain Medrano. But first, we're going to talk about a really fun day of practice that has some folks just a little bit concerned about the offensive side of things for the Washington Commanders. All of that is coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Yes, Jayden Daniels and the starting offense were dominated by the starting defense in Tuesday's Burgundy and Gold scrimmage. But you have to remember is an intentional evaluation that the team set up, and key players were also missing in action during the scrimmage, and it all kind of just helps you hopefully wrap your head around the fact that this is not the final product. This is not exactly what you're going to see during game day. So let's set the stage here. Dan Quinn helped us do that before the practice even began, kind of laid out the plan to create a game-like environment with split squads, heightened competition, and evaluating the players in different situations. Like that was the whole purpose of this thing, was to put these players in different situations, read unusual situations, things like that. He also noted the importance of developing his coaching staff. He said, if you're going to be a developmental coach, you have to develop not just your players, but also your other coaches. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury was the head coach of the Burgundy team, and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. was the head coach for the Gold team. The Gold's offensive plays were called by Brian Johnson. The Burgundy's offensive plays were called by Tavita Pritchard. The defenses were called by Jason Simmons and Tommy Donatel for each side of it as well. And Dan Quinn also noted the silver lining of some of the injuries and the players that have not been able to participate through training camp, especially Terry McLaurin, are the increased reps for guys like Deebo Samuel, building their connection with Jayden Daniels throughout training camp. And he's been impressed by Jayden Daniels' growth, specifically his ability to elevate his own teammates through communication and pre-snap adjustments. 9 players were held out of the scrimmage due to injury. Sam Cosmi and Terry McLaurin, of course, still on the PUP list, physically unable to perform list. So there's clearly not going to be a participant. Offensive tackle Brandon Coleman, wide receiver Noah Brown, quarterback Marcus Mariota, linebacker Jordan McGee, defensive end Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and cornerbacks Jonathan Jones and Bobby Price were all also missing from the scrimmage. It's a lot of first-team offensive players. That's kind of the first contextual note here. Sam Cosmi, Brandon Coleman, Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, all first-team offensive players not participating. And then you look at every single defensive player, even Jonathan Jones, who, yes, he's got outside, inside, capability and potentially rotate in with the starting guys and all that stuff. He's not a starting cornerback on this team right now. The starting corners, Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, Mikey Sanders still. So the defense was missing depth players. The offense was missing starting players. And when you look at this, the starting offense lost to the starting defense. Starting offense missing a bunch of players. And the second offense dominated the second defense. The second defense missing Jordan McGee, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jonathan Jones, and Bobby Price, right? Like, so the units that were missing the players from the scrimmage are the units that suffered. And that's kind of how the NFL works. So we've talked about this before. Every day you're going to remember this. How many times have we talked about the best team in the NFL every year, not necessarily winning the Super Bowl, but the most healthy team. So the silver lining there is it just kind of correlates and just kind of points to health is a major factor in who does well and who doesn't do well. The unfortunate bad news part of that evaluation is these players all missed it because they're injured. You know what I mean? So like if week 1 was today, these players would all be missing as well. And these starting offensive players would be missing as well. And again, Terry McLaurin's status on the PUP list, We can debate it. I think we all kind of have the same opinion on why he's on the PUP list. We'll just leave it at that. So it is what it is. Let's break this down by possession now. Not every possession, but kind of groups. A little bit of information here. The Burgundy offense was led by quarterback Jayden Daniels. They turned the ball over on down a couple of times. They had a couple of 3 and outs. They also gave up 4 sacks, including to guys like Frankie Luvu, Dorance Armstrong Jr. got in there. Andre Jones got a couple. Actually, they gave up more than 4 sacks. But Frankie Luvu, Dorance Armstrong Jr., Andre Jones were the guys that kind of came up with the most sacks on the day. The Gold offense was led primarily, I should say, by quarterback Sam Hartman. Josh Johnson got in there, got some reps as well. But Sam Hartman's unit was one that scored 2 touchdowns. The first on a run by Chris Rodriguez Jr., which was set up by a trick play. A lot of trickeration from Ryan Johnson on the day, which made the practice a lot of fun. And the second was a 15-yard scramble by quarterback Sam Hartman, sprung by a key block from Chris Rodriguez Jr. The scrimmage was called early in the fourth quarter. At least to me, it was called early. We didn't get comment from Dan Quinn, so maybe it was just kind of we ran out of time and couldn't get down to the end of things. But Noah Igbinoghene was getting a little bit sensitive, a little bit testy with the Gold team. I don't know exactly what the issue was, but the Gold team certainly seemed to be talking a little bit of trash. Bobby Wagner was involved, and Noah Igbinoghene was just kind of getting to the point where he was kind of he didn't cross a line, right? He was kind of stepping to the line of being incredibly competitive and all these things, but he was kind of getting close to stepping over the line. One of the last reps that we saw there before they called the practice, he wasn't even really paying attention to his assigned receiver that he's supposed to be covering. He was too busy chirping with the sideline over there and kind of making gestures towards them like he wanted to fight or wanted to do something, which, look, I know Bobby Wagner's a little bit older and they give him a lot of crap for being one of the older players, but I don't think that you want to really step to Bobby Wagner even at his age right now. So the play was the practice was ended just a little bit early. Still had some time on the clock. The Gold team was driving and went forward on fourth down. They'd gotten stopped, and whether it's just because the Burgundy offense was down 2 scores and there just wasn't enough time on the clock to really think that they were going to come back in the scrimmage, or if it was Noah's behavior, whatever reason it was, the team went ahead and called the scrimmage at that point in time and wrapped things up. So 14-0, Gold beats Burgundy. First team defense, second team offense is the Gold team. First team offense, second team defense was the Burgundy team. So that's how it went down. But let's get a little bit deeper into the day's activities. Now that you know the story of the scrimmage, let's dive into the numbers and just see how lopsided it really was and discuss why it's not time to panic about the offense yet. That and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions, and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. We spent this whole show breaking down the Commanders' outlook from that scrimmage. The defense looks absolutely dominant, but the offense has some question marks. FanDuel Futures Day is the perfect time to make your call on how it all shakes out. I'm looking at those long shot division winner odds with a defense that's good, at least is how they're presenting. Maybe you take a flyer on the Commanders to win the NFC East, or maybe you believe Jayden Daniels makes that year 2 leap and you put a few bucks on him as a dark horse MVP candidate. Either way, visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only at FanDuel. Play your game. While the stats from the scrimmage look bad for the starting offense, they look bad. It is not time to panic about Jayden Daniels and the first team offense just yet. And the main reason why is because it's August 12th, the day that this practice happened, August 12th. There's still a lot of time left. There's still a lot of things to work out. There's still a lot of players who can return, a lot of things that can get sorted. That's the reason you do these things. If you didn't need to practice, if you didn't have flaws that you need to work on, you wouldn't practice. You wouldn't have training camps. People wouldn't come out here and do this. They would just wait for the season to start and say, all right, let's go out there and play the season. That's the reason you have these things, is to identify these issues and to go out there and work on them. This time last year, if you remember, the offense was really kind of having, I don't want to say it's having its way, but it was having a much better time at training camp than it is right now. And everybody was really excited, and a lot, the fans were cheering every day at practice and all that stuff. And people weren't nearly as concerned, more concerned about, second wide receivers. Where's the pass rush coming from? all that kind of stuff. But the offense in general was scoring. They were doing good things. Zach Ertz was popping. Terry McLaurin, Jayden Daniels were hitting on long shots, all this stuff. And what did it turn into? It turned into a team where the defense was honestly kind of a liability. Well, the offense is still expected to be a strength of this team, especially if they get healthy, especially when they get Terry back, all of these things. But the defense is starting to fight back. And so it looks like these new additions that the defense has brought on, if your defense is just improving to the point where now they can give your offense this hard level of work in training camp, that should be looked at as a net positive, not a negative. So the stats from the scrimmage, they do look bad, and doesn't mean there's nothing to be necessarily concerned about, but I think that the concern needs to be in the right place. So the final score, 14-0. The defense came up with sacks. Andre Jones Jr. had 2. Frankie Luvu had 2. Dorance Armstrong Jr. had 1. And then there was another sack that honestly, just from the angle I was in, couldn't really tell who they credited the sack to. But that's a total of 6 sacks on the day between the two sides. Andre Jones was on the Burgundy team. Frankie Luvu, Dorance Armstrong Jr. on the gold team. Von Miller got some pressures. Dorance Armstrong Jr. got some other pressures that didn't turn into sacks, things like that. Mikey Sanders still had at least 4 notable tackles or thumps, as you call them in practices. They're not going to the ground. Rookie Trey Amos had a highlight reel pass breakup that was just a really nice, intelligent play that he made with his length and his athleticism. So the 3 stars from the game, Chris Rodriguez Jr. Actually all 3 stars are going to be from the gold team, right? Chris Rodriguez Jr. is going to be the first star that we talk about. Scored a touchdown on one of the gold team's possession. I want to say it was their second possession, and delivered a key block on the second touchdown. The first touchdown was an outside run that Chris, read the blocks, read the defense, found the hole, and got in. The next one was a little bit of a scramble. Chris Rodriguez was out there ready to be a receiver, wanted to, stay alive for his quarterback. But once he realized that Sam was going to run, he turned into a blocker, got in front of his quarterback, cleared out a defender, and just paved the way for Sam Hartman to get into the end zone. So really selfless football there by the running back. Caught up with Chris after practice, not on recording, but just kind of talking about the practice and how well he did. He was very hyped, very excited about his performance, and said that he and Demetri Felton, another gold team running back, during the walkthrough, they actually run that play where Sam Hartman ended up scrambling. He actually ended up scrambling on the play as well during the walkthrough. But during the walkthrough, a defender got loose, got free, got to Sam Hartman, and was able to quote unquote tackle him. And Demetri and Chris had gotten together and said, hey man, if we run that in the scrimmage for real, we got to get out there and block. We got to get a guy locked down and pave the way for him. And sure enough, Chris Rodriguez was the guy on the field when that play went down and was able to execute that. So that kind of shows you that day to day, put something on tape, you want it better, you learn from it, you go out there the next day, you execute. So you love seeing something like that from Chris Rodriguez Jr. and just in general from the offense, and the fact that he and Demetri Felton were talking about it. Speaking of Demetri Felton, he is the next star that we're going to talk about. Again, gold team running back, consistently creating explosive plays, man, including a massive 4th down reception that saved one of their scoring drives for the gold team offense. A lot of going for it on 4th here during the scrimmage, which you kind of expected when you had Cliff Kingsbury on one side. As soon as Cliff went for it on a 4th down, Joe Wood Jr. went for it on the other side on his next 4th down opportunity. So it was just kind of a very aggressive type of called game there. But Demetri Felton, I think what's really impressive here is you have to contextualize in these types of scrimmages when you're not going to the ground, you're not full tackling, you're not full hitting, things like that. It's basically 2-hand touch football, just you're allowed to bump into each other, run into each other with shoulder pads at full speed, right? But essentially, once the officials get a sense like, hey, this guy, would have made a chance to, or would have had a chance to make a tackle, you're blown dead, you're blown down. So there's really no breaking tackles. You have to avoid tackles or you're going to get tackled. So Demetri Felton, a lot of these big burst runs that he had and this catch and run that he had were genuine. They were genuinely making guys miss, reading the lines, reading the defenders, reading the field, seeing it, cutting it, hitting the holes. And he did a really good job for his unit. And then on the defensive side of things for gold, Frankie Luvu, man, just really disruptive force. Tally 2 sacks on Jayden Daniels during the scrimmage, just continuing to be a problem no matter where he lines up. Both of his sacks, or each of his sacks, came from different alignments where he was lined up in a different spot for the defense. So Frankie Luvu certainly looking like he's in midseason form, which is good news, right, for the Washington Commanders, of course, at this stage. So should we be concerned about the offense? That's the question. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you are concerned about the offense, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or tell you that, not to be. I'm just going to tell you that I don't think you should be, right? And the reasons why are just from my perspective. We all see things from our own perspective. I've always said it on this show. I say it to my insiders all the time, agreeing with me is not a prerequisite to listen to the show, watch the show, or be an insider, right? We don't have to agree on everything. The point is to have discourse, have this discussion. So again, I already pointed out in the beginning of the episode, you look at the names of the guys who are not participating in this scrimmage, and the amount of first-team offensive players that were not participating is really big, right? Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Brandon Coleman specifically. But then you also have Laremy Tunsil, who is dealing with that little bit of a groin issue. Again, I've labeled it a groin issue, not the team, but just from watching him that day when it happened, it just seemed like it was a groin issue. So that's kind of what we're unofficially rolling with, right? Laremy was in there for some reps, but then he was out for some drives, right? So he wasn't a full participant on the day, and that's important. That breaks up the rhythm of everything that you have going on. And then you don't have Sam Cosmi in there. So that's essentially 2.5 linemen, starting offensive linemen for your offensive line that are not in here. And you've got a starting running back in Brian Robinson Jr., who, let's all be honest, like B-Rob is a downhill running, break tackles, break arm tackles type of a runner. So when you get him in a situation where as soon as he hits the hole and the defender says, hey, I got my hands on you, you're down, the offense loses that ability to kind of really use and showcase his potential and his ability. It really relies on, again, that blocking to create those holes. Well, we go right back. We circle right back to it, right? The cycle of offensive line. You're missing a 2.5, call it, of your starting offensive linemen out of 5. You're literally missing 50% of your offensive line during this day. And you're going up against a defense that is improved against the run, also improved, not improved, but Joey Jr. told us he's going to maintain the pass rush effectiveness. Von Miller might even actually improve the whole thing. Frankie Luvu's in there causing problems, going up against a 2.5 man down offensive line unit. So not only are they looking good themselves, but they're also going up against a wounded front line. And we talked about it. If you're bad in the trenches, it's hard to be a good team. I'm not saying this team is bad in the trenches. They're just not as good as they could be. You go back to last year's numbers, right? Because who's filling in? Guys like Trent Scott, guys like Andrew Wiley, they're filling in. Josh Connolly Jr., the rookie, who is not yet a full-time starter on this team, he's getting more reps with the first team in these situations, and at times it's showing. He's getting beat on some of these reps. The interior offensive line is getting beat on some of these reps. The places where you're missing starters on the front line is where the defense was getting through today. That's where we saw them get through against saw the New England Patriots get through and their practices and all those things. So again, this just, to me, it's a big part of the context. Does it fully excuse things? No. But when you look at the passes that Jayden Daniels missed, because there were some opportunities. There's a deep ball in the end zone to Jalen Lane that was just a little bit too far, right off the fingertips of Jalen Lane's hands. Then there's another one, Deebo Samuel, where Deebo actually gets past the secondary, beats Trey Amos, beats Mikey Sanderstill. I don't know specifically which guy was supposed to be in coverage on Deebo specifically, but either way, Deebo's past the coverage. Mikey and Trey are behind him and trailing him, trying to catch up to him. And Jayden, because he's got Bobby Wagner running into his face, has to throw that ball over Bobby Wagner, throw it before he's comfortable and set, and the ball just kind of sails on him, right? So things like that just kind of happen when your offensive line isn't great. So is it a sophomore slump for Jayden Daniels? Well, the stat box is not going to read great, right? There's like 6 completions out of like 16 attempts for Jayden because of that. So the stat box certainly not going to look great. But is it a concern about Jayden? That's a question I got from some insiders. Or should we be concerned about Jayden? No, shouldn't be concerned about Jayden. Should you be concerned about who's protecting Jayden on August 12th? Yeah. Like I think what we've seen on August 12th is, oh yeah, this is why this team went out and did so much on the offensive line to try to make it better, right? Like this is basically just a reminder of it. Again, at the same time, Cliff Kingsbury not calling the offense. You have an offense that's basically been quote unquote installed by Tavita Pritchard. It's a reduced offense. It's not, a full blown game plan. All these things matter, certainly. So do you love the idea? What we'd rather have, right, is a 13-10, right, game, 14-7. And then, the clock ran out as the team was going down to make the tying score, things like that, that go back and forth. That's what you would love. You would love to have those balanced contests. So is there a little bit of reason to be concerned? Sure. Should you be panicking at this stage? Not at all. You know what I mean? Let's see what happens against Cincinnati Bengals. If they go out there and lay an egg against Cincinnati Bengals with the starting unit on the field, and if Brandon can play and Laramie's out there and all this other stuff, then we might have a different bit of conversation. But right now, that's where we're going to stand, at least on the Locked On Commanders front. I can't tell you what everybody else is going to say, but that's where we are. So we're just discussed how the dominant defense was a major factor today. Now let's zero in on the heart of that unit and hear directly from Washington Commanders linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. This year, me and Locked On Commanders are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Watching Scrimmage standouts like running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. has me deep in my draft prep on Yahoo. You have to try their new Guillotine Leagues, an intense new way to play where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each and every week. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where, like I said, the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. So whether it's your first league or whether it's your millionth league and you're a fantasy veteran like I am, you have to check out Yahoo Fantasy. Start playing Yahoo Fantasy football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. The dominant gold team defense was powered by its linebackers, and while Ken Norton Jr. was a coach on the Burgundy staff, we still caught up with the Washington Commanders overall linebackers coached by the impressive development of Frankie Luvu and the progress of rookie Kain Medrano.
Coach Norton, Burgundy and gold game. First Burgundy and gold game, at least here that we've had. How do you think it went overall?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. A lot of competition. Guys are playing hard. You're getting guys that didn't get a chance to play much, flying around, coaching them up. So I think that after the first one, not bad for the first one.
And have you been a part of, I know scrimmages happen across the league. Like, when's the last time you had kind of a scrimmage type of environment?
Well, this is a contact game, full speed collisions. So you should always have, most teams have scrimmages like that.
And let's talk about the linebacker unit as a whole. Bobby Wagner obviously is a known legend, right? But Frankie has really kind of come out into his own. Where have you really seen him kind of, I'll say flower, for lack of a better term, since he's arrived?
Well, he's really mature, and I think his exposure to Bobby has really helped him all. He's in the prime of his career right now and really making a decision to be a great player. He's doing all the great things the great players do, hard work, showing up every day, growth mindset, and making plays. So you're going to get a lot from him, and he's making a real good impression on the younger guys. And I think all the guys in the room are really making each other better.
And then Kain Medrano specifically, the rookie, where have you seen him kind of grow the most since he's arrived here with you guys?
Well, just, again, showing up every day. He's been available, and I think he has a growth mindset as well. He's listening to the older guys, does a great job of watching the older guys, and he's pretty talented himself. So there's a certain process it takes to be really good, and he's at the early stages of that process, and I really like the direction he's going.
Now, I don't know if a linebacker will ever just not get caught by a play action. You know what I mean? Like the offense gets paid too, right? That's what they always say. Right. But how do you get a young guy like that to kind of balance the aggression with the football IQ? Because clearly there, right. But he gets frustrated sometimes when he gets sucked into something he shouldn't have.
Right. It's just practice. It's just experience. It's just recognizing looks. And there's a thing about gaining information from the pre-snap. Offense gives you a lot of information early, and being able to really see and use that information to allow himself to put himself to anticipate plays.
And his first NFL action Friday against the New England Patriots, you've had a chance to break down the tape. Right. Kind of just how did you come out of that game thinking that his performance was?
I was encouraged. He showed some toughness, played a lot of snaps, played a couple of different positions, really played hard while he was tired, and kept a clear mind of being coached in the middle of the hard stuff. So as a young player, he's got all the right characteristics it takes to be a really good young player.
And a couple weeks left in camp and preseason. What do you want to see from him these last couple weeks?
Just to finish, to keep growing and keep learning, and stay physical. But he's got something special in him. It's a matter of us getting it out of him.
That was Ken Norton Jr., Washington Commanders linebackers coach, discussing the growth of Frankie Luvu and rookie Kain Medrano. Of course, always appreciate Coach for making time to sit down and talk to us. Back-to-back coaches. We had Bobby Ingram, the wide receivers coach, yesterday. Linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr. today. Wanted to get some opinions from some of these position group coaches coming out of that Friday preseason game against the New England Patriots, and, of course, heading into the next game against Cincinnati Bengals. Coming out of the Bengals game, we'll probably do something similar. We'll maybe talk to Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach, things like that. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Next time on Locked On Commanders, we're going to have a mailbag episode. No practice on Wednesday, so it's perfect time to open the mailbag and see what the insiders want to know about the most right now. In the meantime, if you've got questions that you want to submit for the mailbag, all you got to do is become a Locked On Commanders insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Not only are you going to get to submit your questions and topics for discussion in the mailbag, but you're also going to get live text from me during press conferences, games, things like that all season long and even into the offseason. Despite the offseason, still plenty of things to text about, still plenty of things to talk about. An NFL draft, fantasy draft season is here. So for your second listen, go find the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast with hosts Vinny Iyer and Kain Medrano. Listen every day to prep your fantasy draft and become the most informed manager so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's episode. To the everydayers, I see you every day. I appreciate you every day. And I thank you especially for coming through today. Until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.